How do you find the general attitude is towards food in the UK? As a consumer, you're obviously putting high quality products on the shelf, and that raises the price and things like that. I've heard you say before, and I really like this frame, don't ask why healthy food is so expensive, but more so probably ask why normal food is so cheap.
Yeah, the kickback particularly from the buyers that work within big retailers, so like the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, etc. Here in the UK, they're the ones that have a high degree of conservatism when it comes to giving you a chance. Ultimately, they've got a certain degree of commercial lens that they place on space within their shelves. So if they put something on a shelf that doesn't sell, ultimately their superiors within their organization, they're going to be responsible for that. So that's where a lot of pushback comes. So we've had to create this huge body of evidence via our own website, via Amazon, via small independent retailers to say, hey guys, look at these numbers, look at the demand, this is where we're at. With consumers, I think the beauty of adopting an animal-based diet or a diet that's free from seed oils, it only gets better the further you go along, which is contrary to a plant-based diet. At first you have the honeymoon period and then the wheels start to fall off. Well, the other way around when it comes to the philosophy that we advocate. So yeah, the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Essentially. So when people adopt this way of living, things only get better, typically.
I see that as well. You very rarely see the animal-based eater or the paleo eater or whatever moniker they attach to go to something like a plant-based, but you see it happening quite a lot the other way. And I think that's again testament to understanding who we are, where we came from as a species, and what we really need to thrive. What is happening in the landscape of UK health in terms of the general trends, increasing things like chronic diseases and diabetes? I know it's getting worse. I'm confident of that. I'm not sure that you are following in the footsteps of America very closely, but I think I remember when England was a part of the EU, that they were the fattest country in the EU. Chronic disease seems to be on the rise. And what do you think is going on? What's driving a lot of this, malnourishment and ill health?
It's pretty wild, to be fair. I think there's a stat that 40% of primary school children, which is 11 years old, you leave primary school, are overweight or obese.
Damn.
Like 40%. It's wild. What's driving it? I think the drive towards ultra processed foods, that seems to be a in vogue kind of phrase now in the UK, ultra processed foods. And you hear like the commentators and particular nutritionists, and it's doing the rounds in the media. It's like someone stumbled upon something new. I mean, look, it used to be called junk food. It used to be called like crap, but now it's UPF, it's ultra processed foods. So, and then you got supermarkets here in the UK that are trying to adopt these new like guidelines to stop promotion of these foods in certain promotional aspects. That sort of thing is just scratching the surface. I think there's just an abundance of hyper palatable ultra processed foods that coupled with the use of social media, people just self-medicating, that people are so detached from what it means to be human. They're just going by their day, just in their phones, not outdoors. I mean, the UK hasn't got the greatest of climates or weather system, for instance. It's a complex question, but ultimately people are just, it's hard to answer.
What does it mean to you to just be human? Like you said, people are kind of wrapped up in just running around, living life on autopilot, life by default, less by design. What does it mean to you to try and be more human? You mentioned a couple of things like light and getting outdoors. What else? Like what really grounds you in the hunter-gatherer version of Matt?
A whole host of things. As you know, like morning sunlight, eating nutrient-dense foods, grounding, walking, being outdoors as much as possible, connecting with people in real life. A whole host of things that obviously we all advocate and we all know about within this system or within this philosophy. But the UK has this conservative mindset in terms of if you do those sort of things, that's seen as like really quirky, it's seen as really bizarre. Why would you be doing that? you don't want to be the nail that's sticking out. So I think that doesn't do the UK and the UK population any justice.
Yeah, I definitely seen that, and the term now is the tall poppy syndrome in like the UK, in Australia. They want to chop the tall poppy down, right, and keep everybody on a level playing field. It seems that the only people in our culture that we like to prop up were the celebrities or the footballers, and everybody else should just be very normal. And what's normal in the UK is like going to the pub on a Friday and Saturday night and having a few pints with your mates. And God forbid you want to choose something more aligned, something better. You know what? I don't want to just go to the pub and watch the football and eat peanuts that are cooked in seed oils and drink a few pints and feel like crap the next day. Maybe I want to get to bed on time. Maybe I want to get up and watch the sunrise. Maybe I want to exercise. And there's a lot of banter, right? There's a lot of pull back from your friends, and I think that's everywhere. But in particular, England's quite a small little island floating there. It's very densely populated, and it's grey. Like you mentioned, the disposition of the weather is kind of grey, and I feel like it clouds our perspective sometimes, whereas America just feels big and expansive, and most of the time, or at least some of the time, there's a celebration of people that go their own way and make something of themselves, which seems a little bit more vibrant and alive. But if you're going to change that landscape, if you're going to change those thoughts, you have to just take a stand for something, right? You have to create something. And I think you could tell me more on the numbers here, but you did something like 5 million in sales over the last year, and you're trying to grow to 10. So there is a demand for it, right? There is growth. What kind of people do you think are really latching onto this message? Is it a specific demographic of a person? Like, what are they into? How have they become aware of this? Who are you really targeting? And obviously, I hope that's everybody in the future, but who's really latched onto Hunter and Gather?
Yeah, so just on the numbers, it's been the growth numbers are never as wild as the US, obviously, because we've got six times, like you got 6 times more population in the US, and I think something like 10 times more US spend on food and drink than we do in the UK. But for perspective, the business done a revenue of £6.5 million last year, and we're on track to do like in excess of 11 million this year, which is fantastic, and it shows there's a huge appetite from a particular section of society that wants this. But yeah, who's latching onto it? We always get asked by like marketing agencies and branding experts, like, who is your consumer? It's like, well, our consumer can range from someone in their teenage years who stumbled across Eddie Abu on TikTok, for instance, who's talking about get rid of the crap, to someone in their 70s who's been told they need a hip replacement and has started to understand about inflammation and arthritis. So essentially, it's an individual that's realized that the food system or the wider system is failing them, and they're seeking answers. And they're kind of waking up to how these conflicted interests are keeping them sick, essentially. So yeah, we have some wonderful interactions with a whole host of different people from different walks of life. But it's challenging to actually get through to customers or to people in the UK, because back to the earlier question you asked, people are obsessed about fiber. So fiber is a thing that all nutritionists talk about on TV. You must have your fiber, and you got Tim Spector, who's fairly popular here in the UK at the moment with the Zoe app, and it's all about fiber and it's all about plant-based foods. And to sit down with someone and say, well, it might not be all that it's cracked up to be, is quite a difficult conversation to have when a platform is given to individuals such as that. And they sound very convincing and very compelling. Or it's all about calories still. It's wild that the conversation revolves around calories and eat less and move more. And that's where we're here in the UK. That's kind of the go-to kind of advice that we still see.